He was perfectly still, watching me. He didn't wave. He just registered. Then, slow as a glacier, he raised one hand, pointed a single finger at his own Wi-Fi antenna, and then pointed it directly at me. He knew I had the letter. My heart hammered against my ribs. This wasn't a neighbor dispute. This was a betrayal next door. This was extortion, and I was the new target. For the next 2 days, I did what I do best. I analyzed the problem. I treated Henderson's demand like a piece of malicious code. I went online. Electromagnetic trespass. It's a fringe legal theory. The idea that Wi-Fi signals, radio waves, or cell signals are physically trespassing on your property. It has been laughed out of every court it's ever entered. It's nonsense. Cubic foot billing, not a thing, not anywhere, for any reason. Router ownership threat, pure fantasy. The entire demand was a carefully constructed fortress of legal-sounding gibberish. It was designed to look real to someone who didn't know better. It was meant to intimidate, to panic. The 47,000 figure wasn't random. I checked Zillow. It was almost exactly what I still owed on the house's HELOC. He'd done his research. This was strategic. This was predatory. I'm not a confrontational person. I'm the guy who pays a parking ticket even when I know I'm right, just to avoid the hassle. But this was my home. This was my father's home. I called a lawyer, a cheap online Ask a Lawyer service. The guy on the phone barely let me finish. "Sounds like a standard crackpot neighbor," he said, yawning. "They're a dime a dozen. Just ignore it. He can't do anything. He'll send a few more crazy letters, then he'll get bored and go bother someone else." That was the advice I'd paid $50 for. Landlord told me to ignore it in a different font. Just ignore it. It felt wrong. It felt like ignoring a piece of code that you know is causing a memory leak. It will run fine for a while, but eventually it will crash the whole system. But what choice did I have? I couldn't very well sue him for sending a crazy letter. So I tried to ignore it. I put the envelope in a drawer, went back to my console, and tried to work. But I couldn't focus. I kept looking out the window. And that night, the real harassment began. It started at 3 a.m. A sound, a high-frequency whine. It was so faint I thought it was a mosquito in my ear. But it didn't stop. It was like a needle drilling directly into my skull. I covered my ears. It didn't help. It felt like it was inside my head. I got up, stumbled through the dark house. It seemed to be coming from the wall I shared with Henderson's property. Then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. I stood in the silence, my heart racing, covered in a cold sweat. I was exhausted. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next day, my Wi-Fi cut out. Not just disconnected, it vanished. The network SSID was gone. I reset the router. Nothing. I plugged directly into the modem. Nothing. I called my ISP. They ran diagnostics for an hour. "Mr. Haddon, this is strange," the tech said. "We're seeing 100% packet loss starting at your modem. It's not us. It's something in your house. It looks like massive, catastrophic interference. You don't have like a ham radio or a giant magnet next to your modem, do you? My blood ran cold. I looked at the router. I looked at the wall. Electromagnetic trespass. He wasn't asking for an easement. He was making one. He was enforcing his demand. This wasn't extortion. This was a siege. I went back to the drawer and pulled out the envelope. I looked at the pages again. Tucked behind the satellite map was a page I had dismissed. It was covered in scribbled diagrams. Frequency diagrams, the title said. They were hand-drawn sine waves labeled with frequencies. 2.4 gigahertz, 5 gigahertz, and a third, unlabeled frequency with a note, auditory/nociceptive. Nociceptive, a medical term, meaning causing pain. He wasn't just a crank. He was a crank with equipment. The high-pitched whine, the Wi-Fi blackout. He was demonstrating his capabilities. This was the betrayal next door turned into active electronic warfare. A new, cold emotion started to replace my anxiety. Rage. A fierce, strategic rage. He wasn't just threatening my home. He was using my father's own language, the language of frequencies and waves, against me. I'm not proud of what I did next. I lost it. I grabbed the letter, stormed out of my house, and hammered on Henderson's door. The whine in my head was back, faint but persistent, goading me on. He opened the door. He was small, smaller than I remembered. He wore a crisp button-down shirt, khaki pants, and a placid, almost gentle smile. He looked like a retired grandfather, not a sociopath. "Mr. Haddon," he said, his voice soft, "I was wondering when you'd come to discuss the terms." "Discuss what?" I was shaking, holding the letter up. This is insanity. $47,000? Cubic foot billing? He just looked at me. His smile didn't waver. "It's a standard access fee, Mark. May I call you Mark? Your father and I had a similar arrangement." That stopped me cold. What? What are you talking about? David understood. He understood the sensitivity of the airwaves. He paid for his usage. You are using a significant portion of the spectrum. It passes through my property. That is a trespass. It's very simple. "My Wi-Fi is down," I snarled. "That sound, I hear that sound. You're doing this." Henderson's expression changed. The smile vanished, replaced by a look of profound, almost pitying concern. "Mark," he said, lowering his voice, "are you feeling all right? You look peaky. You know, your father had spells too, towards the end." He leaned in, as if sharing a secret. He'd complain about sounds, headaches. He got so paranoid. He'd shout at me from his yard. It was a terrible thing to watch, the stress just eating him alive. A man like that, all wound up, it's no wonder his heart just gave out. He said it with such sympathy. It was the most violent threat I have ever received. He wasn't just saying he could do it. He was saying he had. He was taking credit for my father's death. I felt the blood drain from my face. I had no words. My rage, my logic, all of it just collapsed. I was staring at the man who had, by his own veiled admission, harassed my father into an early grave. "Think about the offer, Mark," he said gently, patting my shoulder. I'd hate to see history repeat itself. He closed the door. I stood on his porch for a full minute, unable to move. The high-pitched whine in my ears was screaming. I didn't sleep for 3 days. The sound was intermittent now. It would come on for an hour, just long enough to make my teeth ache, and then vanish. My Wi-Fi was useless. I was tethered to my phone, burning through hotspot data just to work. I was living in an electronic prison. I did what any tech-savvy, terrified person would do. I bought cameras. I installed them all over the exterior of my house, all of them pointed at the property line, all of them hardwired so they couldn't be jammed. If he was going to do something, I was going to record it. The very next day, a police cruiser pulled up to my curb. I watched through the blinds as 2 officers walked up my driveway. My heart was in my throat. Had Henderson done something else? I opened the door. "Mr. Haddon?" the older officer asked, not unkindly. "Yes, is everything okay?" "Sir, we've received a harassment claim from your neighbor, Mr. Henderson." I just stared at him. What? He claims you've been behaving erratically, shouting at his door, making threats, and he says you've installed a series of cameras pointed directly into his home, including his bedroom window. "That's a lie," I said, my voice rising. "They're pointed at the property line. He's the one harassing me. He's jamming my Wi-Fi. He's using some kind of sound weapon." The 2 cops exchanged a look. It was the "we've got a live one" look. "Sir," the officer said, his voice hardening, "we can't get involved in Wi-Fi disputes, but we can get involved in illegal surveillance. California Penal Code 502, invasion of privacy. You need to take those cameras down, all of them." "But he's—" "Take them down, sir, or we'll be back with a warrant to take them for you, and we'll take you too. Do you understand me?" I understood. I was being framed. He had boxed me in. He used my reaction to his attack as the proof of my instability. He'd made me the aggressor. I stood there, defeated, as they walked back to their car. I was alone. The police thought I was the crazy one. The lawyer thought I was the crank. Henderson held all the cards. That night, I sat in the dark, silent house. No Wi-Fi, no cameras, no hope. And I remembered my father. I remembered him in this same living room, rubbing his temples, staring at the same wall. I remembered him looking, not angry, but lost. He'd shout at me from his yard. It's no wonder his heart just gave out. This was how he did it. He isolated his victim. He cut them off from the world. He gaslit them until they looked insane to everyone else. And then he just squeezed. I went to my desk. I opened a file. I wrote a check for $47,000. I couldn't fight him. I couldn't be my father. I just wanted it to be over. I'd give him the check in the morning. I'd sell the house. I'd run. I was packing a box, my hand still aching from writing that check, when my phone rang. An unknown number. "Don't answer it," I muttered to myself. It was probably Henderson calling to gloat. It rang again, and again. On the 4th ring, I picked it up. "What?" A woman's voice, sharp and fast. "Mark Haddon, son of David Haddon? Who is this?" "My name is Sarah. I was your father's lawyer. Before," she said, stressing the word, "before he fired me. I heard you moved back in. I figured it was only a matter of time before Henderson made his move." I sank into my chair. You know about him? About this?" "I know him," she said. The venom in her voice was palpable. "I told your father 20 years ago to sell that house. I told him Henderson wasn't a man, he was a termite. He'd eat the foundation until the whole thing collapsed. He sent me a letter, I stammered, the words tumbling out. A $47,000 demand. Electromagnetic trespass. He's jamming my Wi-Fi. The police, they think I'm the one harassing him.
Of course they do, she said, as if it were obvious. That's the play. It's always the play. He's a professional victim. He makes you the monster. Did you confront him?
Yes.
Did you install cameras?
Yes.
And did he serve you with a TRO or a harassment claim?
This morning.
Sarah sighed. It was a long, weary sound. He's running the same script. You're predictable, Mark. Your father was too. Both of you think logic can fight a snake. It can't.
I wrote him a check, I whispered. I'm leaving. He wins.
There was a long silence on the line. No, she said, her voice dropping. You're not. You're not going to run. Your father ran. He hid in that house until his heart exploded. You're going to fight.
How? I cried. He's got me boxed in.
He's bluffing, she snapped. He's a paper tiger. He's got a strong offense, but his defense is non-existent. He's counting on you to be scared. The one thing he can't handle is a counterpunch. Now, I'm going to be your lawyer, my pro bono case for the year. But you have to do exactly what I say. First, tear up that check. Second, go to your attic.
My attic?
Your father spent the last 5 years of his life up there. He wasn't just hiding, Mark. He was working. He was building a case. He told me he was logging everything. He must have. He was an engineer. He wouldn't just complain. He'd document. Find it. Find his work. Find the real frequency diagrams. Then call me back.
The line clicked dead. She was the mentor I never knew I had. Paranoid, hyper-competent, and surprisingly calm under pressure. She hadn't just given me a plan. She'd given me a purpose. This wasn't just a fight anymore. It was family revenge. The attic was as I'd left it, a dusty graveyard of my family's life. Christmas ornaments, my mother's old clothes, stacks of my high school notebooks. My father's work area was in the far corner, under the eaves. It was strange. The entire alcove was shielded. The walls were lined with what looked like heavy-duty aluminum foil stapled to the studs. A thick, grounded copper wire ran from the foil down through the floorboards. He hadn't just been working. He'd been building a bunker, a crude Faraday cage. There was a single wooden desk. On it sat an old beige-colored desktop computer, a dinosaur from the 90s. Next to it was an oscilloscope, a spectrum analyzer, and a dozen notebooks. And a heavy, leather-bound journal. My hands were trembling. I opened it. The first page was dated almost exactly 20 years ago, the day the barbecues stopped.
Henderson proposed the partnership, a new mesh networking patent. He provides the capital, I provide the research. He wants 70%. I told him no. He was unpleasant.
I flipped through the pages. It was my father's life, written in his precise engineering block script. He's blocking my garage door with his car. Says it's property line confusion. This is harassment.
Woke up at 3 a.m. A high, keening sound. My head feels split. Migraine all day. He's doing it. He must be.
Bought the analyzer. I'm not crazy. There's a carrier wave, pulsing, 15.734 kilohertz. Low power, but high frequency. It's coming from his chimney. He's got an antenna.
He had been documenting everything.
I spent the entire night in that shielded alcove, the dust motes dancing in my flashlight beam, devouring my father's words. The journal was the MacGuffin. It was the key to everything. Henderson wasn't just a consultant. He and my father had been partners. They were on the verge of a breakthrough, a patent that would be the groundwork for modern smart home networking. My father refused to give Henderson a majority stake, so Henderson began a systematic psychological campaign to break him. It was all here. The frequency diagrams in Henderson's demand letter, they were a taunt. They were a plagiarized version of my father's own research. Henderson wasn't a brilliant engineer. He was a thief. He had used my father's own genius against him, reverse engineering his research not to build, but to destroy. He weaponized it. He used RF pulses to disrupt sleep, to induce migraines, to create a sense of paranoia and dread. He used a directional jammer to kill his Wi-Fi, his garage door opener, his cell phone. He had, piece by piece, dismantled my father's life. Then I found the entry that made my stomach drop. He sent me a letter today, a demand for $20,000, electromagnetic trespass. The audacity, the sheer criminal audacity. He's using my own research terms. He's trying to frame me as the aggressor. I can't fight this. I called Sarah. I fired her. I can't drag anyone else into this. I'm going to pay him. I just want it to be over. I'm so tired. He had paid. My father had paid him. He had given up. I read that last entry 3 times. He paid. He gave in. And it didn't stop. The journal entries continued for another 2 years. The payment didn't work. He wants more. He wants the house. He says I'm squatting on his easement. The sound is back, worse this time. Police were here. He told them I threatened him. They looked at me like I was insane. Maybe I am. Chest pains all week. Doc says it's stress. Says I need to relax. How can I relax? The walls are humming. He hadn't run. He'd been trapped. Paying the extortion fee was the worst possible move. It was an admission of guilt. It validated the fantasy. It funded the next round of harassment. Henderson hadn't just wanted money. He wanted the house. He wanted my father gone. He wanted to erase the only man who knew the truth about the stolen patent. The final entry was short. It was dated the day before his heart attack. The old rig is set up. The analyzer is running. It's not just a single frequency anymore. It's a full spectrum assault. 2.4 gigahertz, 5 gigahertz, all at illegal power levels. He's not just trying to annoy me. He's trying to cook me. This is PC 502. This is a computer crime. This is an FCC violation. This, a confession. I'm saving the locks. I'm going to the feds. He won't win. He can't. But he never made it to the feds. His heart gave out the next morning. Henderson hadn't just harassed my father to death. He had escalated until the stress became lethal. It was murder by 1,000 radio waves. I closed the journal. The house was silent. The sun was coming up. My rage was gone. It had been burned away, leaving something cold, hard, and perfectly clear. Logic. My father's logic. He had left me a roadmap. He'd left me the logs. He'd left me the exact legal codes to use. PC 502. FCC complaint. Henderson thought he was running the same script on the weak-willed son. He didn't know the son had just read the footnotes. He didn't know I had the developer's guide to his entire malicious program. He thought he was hunting me. He had no idea I was now hunting him. I called Sarah. "I have it," I said. My voice was hoarse. "Good," she said. "What is it?" Everything. A 20-year log, his business partnership, the stolen patent, the first demand letter, the frequency diagrams, the logs from his spectrum analyzer. He documented his own murder. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. "Okay, Mark. Okay. This is it. This is the ball game. Now, you listen to me. We are not going to the police. They're useless. They're looking for a guy with a gun, not a guy with an antenna. We are not filing a civil suit. Not yet. That's a fist fight. We're going to use a sniper rifle." "What do we do?" "We go federal," she said, her voice electric. "Henderson's entire life is built on a lie. We're going to pull the one thread that unravels it all. He's not just a neighborhood bully. He's committing wire fraud. He's violating FCC regulations on a massive scale. That's not a dispute. That's a felony." For the next 48 hours, we worked. I sat in my father's shielded alcove, the only place in the house I felt safe. I booted up his ancient computer, and there they were, the logs. Digital files, saved on a floppy disk, time-stamped, showing massive, illegal-level RF broadcasts coming from Henderson's property, matching the journal entries perfectly. I scanned every page of the journal. I documented the $47,000 demand. I wrote a sworn affidavit detailing the new harassment, the sound, the Wi-Fi jamming, the police report. Sarah took my package and attached it to a 40-page legal filing. It was a formal complaint sent not to the local cops, but to the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC. We weren't accusing him of being a mean neighbor. We were accusing him of operating an illegal, unlicensed, high-power transmitter. We weren't done. She filed a second complaint with the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center, IC3, citing the $47,000 demand as wire fraud and extortion, and attaching the story of the stolen patent as motive. And finally, she filed a third document, a civil harassment suit, with the journal and the FCC complaint attached as evidence. "He wants to play with paper," Sarah said. "We'll bury him in it." The next week was the quietest of my life, and the loudest. The high-frequency whine was constant. Henderson knew. He must have been served the papers, and he had snapped. The sound was no longer a subtle needle, it was a drill. I had to wear industrial-grade ear protection inside my own home. My modem didn't just flicker, it fried. I saw a small wisp of smoke come from the back of it. He was in a full-blown panic. He was throwing every watt he had at my house, trying to drive me out. But he didn't know I was living in the attic. I sat in my father's tinfoil bunker, safe, shielded, drinking coffee and coding on my laptop via a satellite uplink I'd had Rush delivered. I watched him on the new hidden cameras I'd installed inside my own windows. He was unraveling. He was in his yard, in his bathrobe, at 3 a.m., staring at my house. He was pacing his porch, shouting into his phone. He looked haunted. The professional victim was a terrible patient. He couldn't stand being counterattacked. I just watched. And I logged. I recorded his late-night rants. I used my father's spectrum analyzer, which still worked perfectly, to record the new RF attacks. They were sloppy, powerful, and wildly illegal. I forwarded it all to Sarah, who added it to the FCC complaint. We were feeding them a live, real-time chronicle of a federal crime in progress. The trap snapped on a Friday. Henderson made his last desperate move. He called the police again, but this time he escalated. I heard the sirens. I went downstairs, peered through the blinds. 2 police cars and a SWAT truck. My blood turned to ice. I heard them on the porch. "Mark Haddon, this is the police. Come out with your hands up." I opened the door, my hands in the air. 6 officers, 2 in full tactical gear, weapons pointed at my chest. The lead officer, the same one from before, looked at me with pure disgust. "Turn around, hands behind your back." What is this?" I stammered as the cold steel clicked around my wrists. "Mr. Henderson reported a threat," the officer said, pushing me toward the car. "Said you threatened to end him. Said you were building a bomb." "A bomb? That's insane. It's a Faraday cage. It's tinfoil." "He said you were buying strange electronics, grounding wires, oscilloscopes, that you were unstable. We have a judge-signed warrant to search the premises for explosive devices." This was the frame-up, the real one. He was using my defense as proof of my offense. My father's engineering equipment, my shielding, he was twisting it all. They put me in the back of the cruiser. I watched as the SWAT team burst through my front door. I watched Henderson, standing on his porch, a look of serene, triumphant victory on his face. He had won. He had finally, perfectly framed me. I sat in a holding cell for 6 hours. They didn't find a bomb, of course. They found an attic full of tinfoil and old computer parts. They found a scared coder. When they finally led me into the interrogation room, the lead officer and a detective were waiting. "You made us look like fools," the detective said, slamming a file on the table. "I didn't do anything," I said. "You're right, you didn't. We tore your house apart. No bomb, no weapons, nothing. So I can go?" "No," the detective said. "You can't, because Mr. Henderson also filed this." He slid a piece of paper across the table. It was a new restraining order. "He claims your actions and erratic behavior have put him in mortal fear. A judge signed it. You are legally barred from your own home. You can't go within 500 yards of it. You have 15 minutes to gather your essentials, and then you're out." This was it, the final move. He hadn't just framed me. He hadn't just tried to get me arrested. He'd evicted me. He had legally stolen my house. I had a choice, a clear binary choice. 1. Compliance. I could walk away. I could surrender. I could give him the house just to end the nightmare. I could let him win, just like my father did. 2. Revelation. I could fight, but not with logic, not with code. I had to fight with teeth. "Can I make a phone call?" I asked. I called Sarah. "They kicked me out," I said, my voice dead. "He won. He got a TRO. I can't go home." Sarah was silent for a moment. "Where are you?" she asked. "At the station. They're letting me go. But I'm homeless." "No, you're not," she said. "You're a witness. Now listen to me. This is the best thing that could have happened. How is this good? Because he overplayed his hand, she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. He filed a false police report, a felony. He used a SWAT team as a personal harassment tool. And he did it after we filed our federal complaint. He's not just a bully anymore, Mark. He's a criminal who just attacked a federal witness. Now, get out of that station, go to a hotel, and wait for my call. I walked out of the police station, a refugee from my own home. I looked back at the hill, my house, Henderson's house. I made my choice. This wasn't about the $47,000 anymore. This wasn't about the Wi-Fi. This was about my father. This was about the man who died in that house, killed by an enemy he couldn't see. I wasn't my father. I wasn't scared. I was ready. I spent 2 nights in a sterile hotel room, living on bad coffee and adrenaline. I felt like a ghost. On the 3rd morning, my phone rang. It was Sarah. "It's done," she said. "What's done?" "The FCC. They cross-referenced our complaint with your father's journal. The frequencies he's using, they're not just illegal. They're reserved for aviation navigation. He's not just a nuisance. He's a threat." "So they'll send him a letter?" "No," Sarah said. I could hear her smile. "They're sending a team. A van. They're on their way, right now. And they're not alone. They're bringing the U.S. Marshals to serve the warrant, citing the false police report and the risk to aviation. The feds are here, Mark." I checked out of the hotel. I drove to the bottom of my street, parked, and waited. At 10:05 a.m., 2 dark blue vans and a car with government plates rolled past me. They were followed by a car from the U.S. Marshal's office. They didn't use sirens. They just pulled into Henderson's driveway. I watched as 4 people in official FCC windbreakers got out, carrying briefcases of equipment. 2 marshals walked to the front door. Henderson opened it. He was in his bathrobe. His smile was gone. I saw the color drain from his face as they handed him the warrant. I watched as the FCC team filed past him into his home. The man who had built a fortress of paper, who had terrorized my family for 2 decades, was being undone in 30 seconds. I sat in my car and watched them for 4 hours. They were methodical. They were everything the local cops hadn't been. They were specialists. They pulled a massive home-brewed antenna array from his chimney. They carried out 3 large racks of signal generators, amplifiers, and custom-built jammers. It was an arsenal. It was my father's stolen patent turned into a weapon of psychological terror. They were bagging it, tagging it as evidence. Henderson sat on his front lawn, a small, shrunken figure in a bathrobe, watching them dismantle his entire life. He saw my car. Even from 50 yards away, I could see his eyes. The sociopathic calm was gone. The pitying, condescending mask was gone. All that was left was a hollow, defeated nothing. He knew. He knew my father's journal had done this. He knew the son he dismissed as weak and paranoid had just brought the full weight of the federal government down on his head. He had threatened to repeat history. He had no idea I was going to finish it. When they were done, one of the marshals walked over to my car. I rolled down the window. "Mark Haddon?" "Yes. The FCC has seized all illegal transmission equipment from the premises. The judge has also vacated the restraining order pending a criminal investigation into Mr. Henderson for filing a false police report and witness tampering." He handed me a piece of paper. "You can go home." I drove my car up the hill and parked in my own driveway. The house was a mess. The police had tossed it. But it felt clean. I walked to the window and looked over at Henderson's house. It was dark, empty. He was gone. The marshals had taken him for questioning. I went up to the attic, to my father's desk. I sat there in the shielded room, and I opened the journal to the last page. He won't win. He can't. You were right, Dad, I whispered to the empty room. He didn't. I had one last thing to do. I went to my new high-powered router. I plugged it in. The green lights blinked on. My network, Haddon Strong, appeared on my phone. Full bars. I opened my laptop, brought up the invoice he'd sent me, the $47,000 demand. I typed a reply. Dear Mr. Henderson, regarding your invoice. No. See you in court. Mark Haddon. I hit send. The war wasn't over, but the siege was broken. Sarah's civil suit was moving forward. The criminal charges, for fraud, for the FCC violations, for the false police report, were all piling up. Henderson was out on bail, but his assets were frozen. His paper fortress had crumbled. The house was quiet. The high-pitched whine was gone. The silence was the sweetest sound I had ever heard. I was transformed. The man who was afraid of a certified letter was gone. The coder who just wanted to be left alone was gone. I was my father's son, a man who understood that you can't fight monsters with logic. You have to fight them with justice. The betrayal next door, it had cost my family everything. But in the end, it had shown me who I really was. I wasn't a victim. I was a survivor. And this was my house. If you believe that one person's choice, one piece of truth from the past, can expose a world of lies, subscribe right now, because this wasn't just the end of his story. It was the beginning of mine, and the truth always finds a way.